We can share, but I mean, come on, printing
We bring me no damn cereal.
costs a lot of money. What's this say?
Just the estimate, page 2 is the amount we'll have to pay them,
Okay,
and then page 3 is what.
I can't, the margins are so slim, Ken. It's not like construction, okay?
I'll bring you my own shop.
Pure
How's that?
profit. You can come up for a sample.
Never mind. I'll talk to your mother-in-law.
They're small samples. She'd probably give it away.
Yeah, I threw it back to Will. Oh, there's two there. No.
Oh, that's true.
Good. We're good. Strategy, got this.
For what?
You tell us.
No.
She's out.
Oh.
Make it a surprise.
Came up with.
Oh, we can add addition for letter of support from the select board for the CDS funding. That we were gonna go after this week.
We already.
We already got approved, we already approved it. The problem is,
You approved the project, it's like a letter to go. And then
do we have the letter?
delegate it, we're gonna sign stuff, right?
Oh, okay, sure.
That's just for the full packet.
I know, but if I'm gonna approve a letter, I would like to see it, right? I could either agree or disagree with the portion.
Wait,
We have a generic support letter,
Just flower little things saying, we're all behind it.
That you don't see.
right? Right, but I'd rather see it.
Steve, you're a regular short timer, aren't you? Suggested motion.
Yeah.
So.
Is this the last one, Steve?
I called him to tell him we had a meeting. He hung up on me.
You guys have,
The annual meetings last.
Yeah.
they keep adding me, do you guys have two people filling the seats? Did you see And the other seats?
Please, somebody runs against me.
What's a write-in campaign do for those, 6, 7,
9.
That's
9?
the way we can get around.
Damn,
I heard somebody's gonna write you in.
9 people even show up?
You write me in,
Is that true?
That's all day though.
Steve? We threatened it last week.
How many you need in the village, 9?
8 or 9. Yeah.
Oh, no kidding. That should be relatively easy.
Do you even get that many?
Depends who
people
you are.
show up?
Sometimes when night
To our
like
meeting?
you, might be hard.
Last year we had 100, but it was exciting me.
Really?
You gonna borrow money again this year?
I'm impressed.
Nope.
No. It's a very cookie cutter meeting. There's no extra articles at all.
100, man. It's like better participation than we get.
Oh, it's like 10 times my first one.
Oh, I bet. What are all you people doing here?
That's what I was
We're
wondering.
interested.
Well, I know what they're.
Sorting.
Everybody goes silent. Cricket.
Oh, you're well.
Yeah, so Ray will be there first thing in the morning.
You got us, BJ?
We also need to do the traffic. plan.
Earth to BJ.
Services plan.
He's gonna-
Yeah,
I'm
on.
We good?
Not today, but Thursday.
Yes, we're ready.
That one says 6 o'clock.
Mine says 2 minutes early.
Well, I guess we can wait. Try to go by whichever one comes first.
Yeah. I said, I was ahead. It's always cool to start a meeting. Basketball.
Right? It's kind of nice. We could like move it up 15 minutes.
Is it 6 o'clock, Mr. Chairman?
No, not quite. It's
That's
5:59.
Oh,
We're going by cellular,
Going by yours.
cellular time now.
Peacock
The
moment.
trustees do this flags float, so we're gonna
Kind of
defer to them to start the
The
meeting.
Pledge of Allegiance. We can call both of them together. They can do it. Isn't it on there?
It is.
Why, don't you want it?
It is.
Do the pledge of allegiance?
Of course I do.
Yeah.
Okay, well.
That's what I said.
Yeah.
Oh.
You guys are,
We can let
you
Mike.
guys have the pledge of allegiance. So we're gonna defer to you guys to start the meeting.
All right, open the meeting. We'll call it 6 o'clock. Monday, March 24th. All trustees present, BJ on Zoom.
Yes.
Join us for the pledge of allegiance.
Do we need to call the select board?
Where's our flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Usually we call both boards to order, so I guess I'll call the select board to order. I guess for historic value, but we're good. First item on the agenda is members of the public.
Well, did you want to add her?
Do we have additions or agenda? This looks different.
Yeah, it's half.
Pledge of review and okay. Just doesn't have a time.
This addition to the agenda, Mr.
Are
Chairman?
there any additions or adjustments to the agenda from the select board?
Yes, I'd like to talk about the skate rink.
You guys cool with that?
Yep. Any adjustments from our board?
Well,
Good.
I don't think all of them were done. I was just
Okay.
clearing them one by
Yep.
one. If you guys are cool with that,
Yep.
we're cool with clearing everything. Adrian had some.
Yeah, I wanted to add, CDS funding, letter of support from village and select board,
From the village as well.
if they would like. Up to
Do
them.
you guys wanna we could take it up as just the select board or
Well, you're gonna have to give us the whole lowdown for us to support, because I don't know what you're talking about.
we're. At our last meeting, we talked about two congressionally directed spending opportunities. One was a potential for a multi-use water plaza for a buyout property, and the other was for potentially moving the municipal building, just asking for CDS funds. They didn't, none got approved in 2025 that I know of. But it's an opportunity for, I like to call it federal bacon to sizzle, I guess. But we could take it up as select board only at
Nope.
the end if you guys want, whatever works.
Believe that's what you're here to talk about, Seth?
We're here to talk about the upcoming HMGP applications. I think
Different. Okay, so that's different.
Different grant.
Yeah.
The CDS.
Okay, do you guys have anything to add? BJ, you got anything?
I do not.
Was that your only addition?
I wanted to also add, Zoom use for, committees and commissions and the library trustees.
It sounds like select board only business for next meeting.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, I don't think you guys have any committees, so.
We don't want it.
The only.
You want one?
Nope.
We're gonna set up buy a cheap, Chromebook, minimal cost to set up like a permanent Zoom setup, so that way you wouldn't have to bring your laptop up.
We have two different Zoom accounts.
You could still log into your own account, so that way Eric wouldn't have to have his computer tied up. That's the only reason why we thought we'd bring it up while you're right here.
Is your
I use this as the YouTube live storage.
So, it sounds like it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Do you want to bring that up at our next
You're not
regular
here.
meeting?
Okay, yeah, sure.
Okay. Sorry, I missed that one. Members of the public, I assume this is a spot for public comment. Is there any public comment?
I'm just here to listen.
All right. Do you want to take off with LCPC and Melissa and
Yeah. Sounds good.
Seth?
Wrap it up. Right. I have a small handout for you that'll start here and pass it along now. So we are here tonight to talk to the select board and trustees about getting formal approval to submit two hazard mitigation grant applications.
Would you mind speaking up, please?
Okay, so we're here to speak to you to get formal approval to prepare and submit two hazard mitigation grant applications. The deadline is April 30th, so we are hoping to get your approval tonight so that we know that both boards want to move forward so that we can start dedicating staff time to pulling together those applications. Some of you might recall that we met with both boards back in the summer with kind of a long, extensive list of possible hazard mitigation grant applications. The two we are going to talk about tonight are those that we're at a phase where they were ready enough and fit the HMGP priorities that Vermont Emergency Management has outlined for this round enough to make sense to submit. I know that there were other projects that the boards identified as priorities. We are going to continue to work on advancing those through the modeling work and other seeking out other funding sources. So we just want to make sure that's clear, that I know that there are other priority projects in the community. The two that we are going to talk about tonight are looking at floodplain restoration work on the town-owned property on Wescom Road, near the mobile home park, the area of that property that's not used by the skate park. And looking at second application, looking at potential floodplain restoration on potential buyout properties along the Guyon, as well as the wastewater treatment plant property, should the village decide to move forward with relocation of that building. So that project would specifically include, as you see on the map, the Union Bank property, the health center property, which is on both banks of the river, the former Sterling Market property owned by Palmero, a residential buyout on Library Street, and then, as I mentioned, the wastewater treatment plant and the adjacent peninsula. If their relocation progresses, you may recall that we had discussed that property as a separate application. I'll kind of get into the rationale for combining that with the buyouts when we talk about that in more detail. Just first, a little bit of quick background on the HMGP program. It's Hazard Mitigation Grant is what that stands for. So these applications are funding that from FEMA, filtered through Vermont Emergency Management, aimed at reducing future damages from flooding in the disaster or in future disasters in the community. The applications need to be submitted by the municipality that will ultimately own the property or improvement. So when we get to these two applications, we'll talk about who will be the applicant and such. The program usually requires a 75% federal share with a 25% non-federal share. For the current round that's associated with the July 2023 flood and potentially HMGP funding associated with 4810, which is the December 2023 flood, that state is going to be providing that 25% match with state funds. So no local match share for this round. It's one of the reasons why we're going to talk about trying to submit kind of packaged applications that are fairly larger than we might do if there was a local match. And it's anticipated that the April round that's coming up will cover both of those disasters. This is kind of a critical application round. So to prepare a hazard mitigation grant application, there's some background documentation and analysis that is needed. We are in the process of developing those materials through some resources that Vermont Emergency Management has provided us. It's not baked enough to provide tonight, so we're going to kind of provide some background, but we will have more by April. But we want approval to move forward because there's a lot of work that has to happen between now and April 30th for an application to be ready. So the application will need to include modeling of flood reduction benefits, which is some work we've begun, a conceptual plan showing where the floodplain restoration will happen, a cost estimate, and then benefit cost analysis following a methodology that FEMA outlines. And so that's showing that FEMA investment will provide more benefit than the cost of the project. Because these are complicated projects, both of them, and because there's still going to be a lot of work to be done by April 30th, we are proposing going forward with what would be called a phased project. So that would mean the application would include funding for a first phase that would be more detailed engineering, more refinement of the plans, more work on the benefit cost analysis and permitting. And then if phase one confirms that there's still a positive benefit, phase two would be the implementation and construction. Both phases would be included in the same application, and both phases would be covered with that 25% state funds for match. So I am going to talk about both of these specific projects. I'll pause if you have questions about the big picture parameters of the application now before we get into the details of the specific projects. Are you good? Keep going. Go ahead.
Kind of a basic question.
No
I'm
problem.
embarrassed to ask. What does floodplain restoration look like?
That is a really good question.
Is that,
Probably should have. So essentially, for both of these projects, what will be looked at are two things. Sort of lowering the ground surface elevation to kind of create more room for floodwaters to be stored. And then revegetating, to stabilize the slope, and in some cases, revegetating to kind of increase the attenuation of the soil and capture debris that might be in it. So think of it like if the ground surface is here, think of it lowering here, especially when we're talking on the properties on the Guyon where there has been some fill added to elevate the structures. So that's really what we're talking about.
kind of similar to Holmes Meadow?
It's very similar to Holmes. Yeah. Think of both of these as very similar to Holmes Meadow.
So what are you gonna do if you come across a piece of charred wood that might have been there 600 years ago? They're gonna hold the whole project up?
So the reason for doing a phased application is that we can include the archaeology, soil assessment, all of those kinds of things in the phase one, so that we can do that work, develop a plan, meet the state standards for archaeology or soil management that we need to. And then incorporate any of the remediation work or assessment work that needs to be done in the phase two project.
That might cost more than the whole project.
The assessment work can be, can be resource intense. The good news in terms of if it's like a soil management issue is that the primary way you deal with a soil management issue is by excavating and hauling, and what we're talking about is excavating and hauling. But you're right, that will be a cost that will need to be built into those that first phase budget, and some just one of the things we've got to do. Yeah,
I just have a question, looking at the Union Bank property, and you're talking about lowering it, potentially lowering it.
Yeah.
This packet that was handed out, it talks about building a building there. So that would be built in the hole.
Which
This one of the outdoor market on the Union Bank site.
Slightly separate, so phase one that he's talking about is just doing the planning and design work for these projects. Phase two would be probably construction, right?
Yeah.
And then phase three, which is what we're gonna talk about later, is using CDS funding for FEMA approved outdoor structures that would go in those places. So you're on to something that you're spot on, but I think it's for later in the discussion after we
Okay.
finish up with us.
Those are things that are okay if they get flooded.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's probably a good segue into talking about the Guyon buyout properties and the wastewater treatment plant. I think that will answer some of that. So what we are proposing for that project is that it be a joint application from both the town and the village. The reason for that is that the town, after the buyouts, will own the buyout properties. But there's some pretty important village utilities and infrastructure on some of those properties that needs to be considered. So by doing a joint application, that will prevent, ensure that the needs of those utilities are considered and prevent any confusion about who owns them once the project is done. Also, with including the wastewater treatment plant property, potentially, that will mean that that property is owned by the village, and so it just makes it cleaner to have both municipalities as the joint applications. So as we talked about, what that would look like is, at each one of those kind of targeted excavation and lowering of some of the fill pads to enhance the flood storage. This one especially makes sense to do as a phased application because there is going to need to be more work done to identify and consider the needs of the surface utilities like the power poles and the surface infrastructure like sewer and water, just to make sure those are properly protected if you're lowering those pads. Because this one is also kind of dependent on multiple property owners, doing a phased application means if somebody decides not to move forward with a buyout, or if the village decides that the best solution for the wastewater treatment plant is to mitigate it in place, or funding doesn't, come through to do the relocation, we could pull out a specific property and have the whole go forward. That gets to the big question of why are we including or proposing to include the wastewater treatment plant with the buyout properties. And the biggest reason is that the initial modeling work that we've done is suggesting that lowering or reducing the fill at those buyout properties, doing the floodplain restoration will be more effective if restoration also occurs at the wastewater treatment plant. And that is because a lot of the flooding in that area is caused by the backwatering of the Lamoille up the Guyon. And so the more room you provide for the Lamoille, there's more room than you have for when the water from the Guyon to have a secondary outlet. As I mentioned earlier, it also means that if the village ultimately decides not to move forward with relocating the plant, we can still have the application go forward without having to fully pull an application or a contract, which might not be a great thing to do in the current environment. Just to give you a picture of sort of what we're finding from the initial modeling is that the greatest benefits from doing this work in this setting are really from the reduction in velocity of the river, more so than reduction of the surface level. And that is really at a critical point right now. The velocities that you have in like a storm like we had in 2023 are right above the point where floodwater and the velocity starts to be, cutting new channels that would include damaging infrastructure. The reductions that we're seeing would mean even if you have some surface flooding, it's not as damaging because it's not moving as fast. It also means in a smaller flood event, it's more likely to deposit debris or ice jams on the restored floodplain as opposed to create a jam at the confluence where it might, back up and be more damage. Unfortunately, just to be fully, transparent on this, we're not seeing significant reductions of surface water elevations with just the buyouts. We are seeing a reduction like the velocity, so the water's moving more slowly, less damaging, but we're not seeing significant reduction unless you're also opening up the confluence with the wastewater treatment plant, and then you see an inch to several inches with just the wastewater treatment plant moved, we still need to do the modeling to kind of combine and see if that grows, if it's like multiplying, additive, or just the same. So that is sort of where things stand with that. So what we're hoping to do tonight is get approval from both boards to prepare and submit those applications. And then have both boards designate either the chair or a staff member to sign the required documents. I'll pause though, because I suspect you have questions about the details before approving an application.
So the Union Bank project,
Yeah,
so is that gonna affect our stabilization of the pole we're working on with the grants and all that, or is that even in consideration of lowering that? Are we stabilizing this pole and gonna have to re-stabilize it again after that?
we are trying to do this in a way that does not slow you down in terms of stabilizing that pole. But if the project is successful, we'll provide additional protection of the pole.
I've got the engineer that's working this. Went down to that pole with me and Seth and Nate.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that that was covered because, I mean, to spend the money and to stabilize that pole and then have to do it again if we decide we're gonna lower that area. It just, I wanted to make sure everybody was thinking about that when it,
No,
I figured you were.
Absolutely. And also, reduce erosion, which is the issue.
Yeah.
With the pole, so, and all along. Being on, this portion, so.
so just kind of related but separate. The modeling that shows that the wastewater facility property is basically the key to helping the flood mitigation. We need that info to HUD.
Yeah.
For the community development block grant decisions.
We do.
Yeah.
It's the deeper we go, the more important that is. And so I think having that coming from a Region Planning Commission and from the municipality and backed up by the modeling is going to be really important in this month. So yes.
So for the Union Bank property to start with, you're talking about a reduction of the elevation of the current property.
Yeah.
How much are you talking?
So that's where we really do, I feel like, need to do more work between now and April, and then more work when we get to the phase, if it's awarded to the phase one. You know, our initial, because of the pole issue, sort of the initial concept is to lower the fill pad so it matches the current ground level. But we know that is the ability to do that is limited and has to consider the pole that's there as well as the village infrastructure that goes through, along the edge. So I don't have the exact cubic yards for that site yet. I think there's going to be a lot of flux over the next month, but we can get you that detail.
The cubic yard I'm not as concerned with, because I mean, it's test basic math, but I'm just thinking about elevation.
you're saying like 6 feet, 12 feet?
Yeah.
I think originally there was some discussion about a foot, but that's the more complex property out of all of them due to the number of utilities.
Yeah.
And the erosion on the site. So that one certainly, I think, out of the others would definitely need some more engineering and modeling.
Okay. I don't know how familiar you are with that property back there. I'm very familiar with it. I adjoin the other side of the river on the Union Bank side. I suggest you take a look at the pinnacle behind the church property out there. If you want some information about where it was and where it is now, where that river is going to be cutting across at some point here, and how that flow is going to hit that Union Bank property.
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys are into that, but if you want some insight, I'm more than happy to talk to you about that. The other thing, the second property I've been interested in is the Pomelo property, and with the elevation change there is, and with the property lines being adjacent to the community bank, and their lack of parking, if you drop that 6 feet, they're gonna close up shop, we're gonna lose the last bank in Johnson. So does that factor into any of your, I mean, flood mitigation is obviously a priority, but does factoring into the current businesses and the benefits that it provides to this community factor into your decisions?
So Vermont Emergency Management is aware of the parking situation, and there's a lease on those parking spaces. Currently, Community National Bank and Honolulu are in discussions about working out a possible subdivision, so that way the parking will stay with the property. In the event that that subdivision can happen, we've already worked out solutions where there would be like a 30-foot access strip to the back of the Community National Bank that would be permeable and would be called a gravel access. So the parking lot would be gravel, it would still be a parking lot, but it would meet FEMA's buyout, there.
So the permeable asphalt or concrete doesn't work, it has to be a gravel.
That's their first throw out. I'm sure they'll sort it out, right?
All right.
But their first throw out was just a gravel path, was the example.
Yeah.
But this parking for the bank is of high priority, and Vermont Emergency Management is aware of it. And there's two solutions in place that they're trying to work through.
Okay, so I had heard a rumor, and you're the people who kind of straighten those things out, is that I'd heard that if the property in its entirety at the time of the event isn't taken at the buyout, then that doesn't become an option. But it sounds like they're willing to work with carving out a piece of the Pomelo property for the bank in the situation. Is it not? So it's not true that the buyout situation can't happen if it's not the entirety of the property at the time of the event.
Last I talked to Vermont Emergency Management, is that there's a few properties around the state where it makes sense to have subdivisions happen. And so I don't know if there's a mechanism for it, but they are investigating it. And then there's also the alternative solutions of just permeable surfaces that just aren't lowered to the floodplain. With the Holmes Meadow project that the town is doing now, only about 50% of that 3-acre parcel is actually going to be lower. The rest of it is staying at current grade. And I think so, just because we're going to say we're going to floodplain, do restoration on that entire parcel, it's not going to go right up to the property boundary and then be like a steep drop, It's going to take into account the aesthetics and the existing use of surrounding parcels. So that way it won't take away from the character.
Okay. And then just one more personal thing is that I find it kind of amusing that the feds can say that if you lower the ground level, it can help mitigation of flood and ice jams and stuff like that. The state says if you take gravel out of the river, it doesn't affect the floodplain at all. So just a personal note.
Contradicted science facts. It's a contradiction to the science in the back.
Does anybody here have any questions? I was gonna bring up the parking, but I'm glad Will did. I'll echo it for a local business, but I think it's known by you guys already, so.
And these are the reasons why this don't really make sense as doing a phased application, because, there's the parking issues, there's the utility pole issues. I think it is giving us some value, and we're talking to you and other folks who've seen the river and how it's migrated to develop the final plans. So the initial work is kind of trying to take into account the parking. I think there's going to be need to be quite a bit of refinement. We're also trying to time this so that the plan is for this to happen post buyout, so that if anyone needs to make adjustments or the property owner decides to change track, they're not kind of stuck in this, and so that it maintains that voluntary nature of the buyouts.
And at the same time, he was talking about the property behind the church. That's where the river is going to be coming across the field. That's the cause of our erosion. So it's not the river itself, it's when it comes straight across and bounces off our pole and then turns this way.
Eventually it will head that way, because I can show you where it was.
Well, that's what it does when it floods. That's where the
But
main.
I'm saying
current
that's
runs.
gonna be the main course of that river at some point. I mean, we've lost probably 12 feet just this spring. So,
On the back corner.
Which is like the natural progression of
yeah,
rivers,
yeah,
right?
rivers.
That earth science in high
Yeah.
school or something.
Yeah.
And they create oxbows
You didn't
and they
hate
cut that.
Exactly,
You can look at the Connecticut River, there's a ton of them on it.
Well, when you say this spring, you mean 2025?
Yeah, there's 3 feet dropped off 2 days ago.
Yeah, losing several feet a year over there.
Are you entertaining questions from the public?
You guys said everything? Sure.
As I'm studying flood resilience and recovery in some of the other towns around Vermont, what I'm seeing is a need to address the length of bridges. And so my question about this particular project is the Route 15 bridge at Gion. I just wonder about the domino effect, if you widen the floodplain, widen the path of the river, is the bridge now needing to be widened as well?
So, in addition to kind of trying to move this forward to, application now, LCPC is also working on doing hydraulic modeling of the Guyan, and that will include, looking at that question of whether widening the bridge would, reduce flooding. Potentially by kind of making the approach, have less fill around it, we might be helping to facilitate that in the future. We are keeping an actual implementation of widening the bridge separate from this, just because there's a lot of coordination with V-Trans. Getting that onto the program, doing all of that, but we're definitely, this summer going to be looking at, trying to model better and understand that question. Thank you. Yeah.
Currently actually getting all the bridge plans from Hardwick to Fairfax from V-Trans.
We are, yes.
To look at them all.
Yeah.
Does this application change, one question I have is just like future ownership, so it's so right now, all of the properties except for the sewage treatment plant, the application is set up so the town becomes the future owner.
Yeah.
So this joint application will say the town will become the future owner, but just keep the existing utility easements, is that what it would look like?
That is ultimately what sort of our starting point is. If we're looking at it and it makes sense to sort of shift some of those utility easements, that might be something that gets discussed in phase one, but I don't know, it could be managed in phase one. I don't think we know enough, by we, LCPC, about sort of the needs and locations of the easements at this point to say things would, necessarily move or need to change. But that one of the reasons for the village being a joint application, because those easements are there to ensure that consideration of both, the physical infrastructure, but the village's need for maintenance and access is taken into account in this project.
Because it doesn't matter who owns the properties, the easements and right of ways stay in effect.
Right, exactly. Those carry through. Yes.
The comment on the bridges, there's a brick grant cycle that went through. And the town reached out to AOT, doing a collaborative application. And this was the first time that they had to run it up the chain, because they never had a town approach AOT to say, how do we do this application where we're using town funds for infrastructure that's not owned by the town? Because one of our biggest concerns, right, is that hogback and the guy on the 15s. And so they're now creating those mechanisms. So AOT is like making a conscious effort to create mechanisms for regional planning commissions, towns, and getting on the radar that flood mitigation needs to happen. Not just with their bridge schedule, but actually at the need with the residents of those areas. And that's huge. This is the first time for them to take that approach instead of just being our bridge alone. They're now coming to the table.
Thanks for instigating that or collaborating.
Is there anything you want to go over with the Wescom property? I assume you want a motion for both.
Yeah.
Wescom Road just gonna kind of be like Pumpkin Harbor and Cambridge, give or take, as an example.
Yeah. So
But there's a lot of important utilities for you guys there.
Yeah, water.
Okay, so it's possible, so I was more familiar with the utility needs of the properties here. If there are utility needs in that property and Wescom too, it may make sense to both projects for the village to be an applicant as well. The Wescom Road is really looking at, again, floodplain restoration, lowering the elevation of that town-owned property to get more flood storage.
My question there was, like, is the road gonna stay at the same elevation and that?
Yeah.
Around, that's why I was using Pumpkin Harbor as an example. I think you guys did. that
We
application for Cambridge?
We did, as the modeling is currently, it would be, the road would be remaining at the same elevation. To avoid, displacement elsewhere in the park. But it is looking at that, what to do about inflow and outflow of that culvert on the bottom of Wescom Road, which from what I understand is kind of feeds that property before it overtops the road.
That's what it does, yeah.
It would sure be nice to raise that road, just put a bunch of pass-through culverts. Cause that not only you have residents down there, but you also have the water treatment facility down there.
We did, it might be worth looking at, I think, Doug McAllister, I think he's there at, Laramie School about the possibility of an emergency, utility road at the end of Wescom that ties on to Laramie's property and out, so that way putting in a lot of culverts might be cost prohibitive, but lowering the road and then having during flood road, except, right of way out. That might save a lot of money, and it's probably a benefit for the village to get it, even Western Road even floods at its current elevation, so.
It does,
It might be cheaper and easier just to have, for those houses, somebody become an island that they can get out.
right, or, I mean, we used Laramie tractor trail in July 23. But you still had to, walk cross country through the hedge, over the hill through the woods to grandmother's house.
It would be great to formalize that for you guys, so you could get, not even having it full freedom,
Well, and also, like I said, if you could somehow hook it to the road for the residents, they could get out too.
Correct.
Yeah.
So this is a good example of why doing a phased application makes, sense, because that could. We haven't, in the initial cost estimating and modeling, looked into changes to the road elevation. With a phased application that could potentially be added.
Do you have a timeline on when the different phases would be?
So,
Years.
yes,
So
so
Holmes Meadows still going on, that was 2019, flood,
Yeah.
HMGP money.
Municipal.
Yeah.
it is, yeah, our deadline is April 30th, and then everything goes into FEMA time.
Yeah,
So,
which is measured in geological terms.
Do you have any other further questions?
we can't get all.
Peter, Mike, you good? Do you guys have,
You have questions?
Let's ask him about that one later.
do you guys,
No,
are you guys interested in co-applications?
yes,
For
I think to
HMGP
be a
for
partner at the table, I think
for-
that makes sense.
both these projects? How do we formalize that in a motion? Somebody want to make something up? Yeah, are you looking for a motion?
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
we would like it.
move the select board enter into an agreement with LCPC to apply for HMGP grants with the chair to sign said agreement.
Could you say for the Wescom Road property and multi-property along the Guy Hunt Village
Tonight would be good.
as presented tonight? Can you add that?
That would work.
Yeah.
And can you add like co-applicants or?
And I'll,
Well, we have to sign.
Okay, I guess we would.
and I'll make a motion that we
Yeah.
go into town.
Oh, motion on the floor, is there a second? Sorry.
Okay.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it, sorry.
Okay, I'll make a motion, the village joins the town in the joint application of the projects presented tonight.
Do we have a second? Second. Any discussion?
You guys had a fourth.
We're all here.
It can't go down.
Any discussion, BJ? You good?
I'm good.
All in favor?
Aye.
Let's have it.
Both boards, can we also have sort of the signature authorization from either the chair or the.
Mike's was to authorize the chair to sign.
It was.
Chair.
Okay, so that.
And did yours mirror that?
That mirrored that, so. Sure.
Your village chair?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
What, you want to sign our stuff?
Can we be like, can Ken be on the right hand side of the page and I be on the left hand side of the page?
We'll try to. Get step.
Could we be like diagonal, same line? Whatever works. So e-signature is fine, you guys will,
Yeah, we'll prepare the documents.
whoever needs to prepare them.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else, LCPC?
That's it.
Okay,
Thank you, Seth.
Thank you.
Thank you, Seth. Thank you, Melissa.
moving on, our next item, it's really two items. One is the AC work and one is the hazard mitigation work to the municipal building. Can we kind of break it down and just talk about AC first?
Sure.
You guys cool with that? So the AC work, I think Ken and I had talked and he was wondering if there was a possibility of, I'm misspeaking, jump in, to hit pause on it. We had taken the lead at a joint municipal building and gone out for the RFP process, selected a contractor, and I believe you guys had approved half of it. If we back out now, I think we're gonna be in the boat for over half of it anyways. And while I understand it, I do think we're gonna need it for multiple years before
Yeah.
this building goes anywhere.
Yeah.
So I'm not recommending we hit pause on it, but we're here at the table having conversations. I don't know.
So the hope was is that they could repair and do and hook it up to the bottom half. The original one,
You want me to be uncomfortable at meetings? Ugh.
and then you could spend $1,000 and get enough window mounted units up here to save $40,000 or so. So that's for the time being. But at the same time, I get that it could be 2 to 3 years. We're hoping it's nowhere near that long.
Right?
Cause I don't know if that plan will keep running for that long, the way it is, but. That the plan, the hope was is that we could not spend all that money. We get it's late on that factor. But
Think,
Tom mentioned that there was a repair they could possibly do to. Swap the bottom and make the bottom work and then just
Well,
have to deal with the top.
we're going with the option where the indoor units here aren't being replaced. It's just the outdoor condensers, right? And then they're putting a coil because it's a heat pump instead of DX. So it is kind of a repair to both units, right? And I think he's already ordered all the equipment.
Yeah.
So the most that's gonna save us is labor, but I mean, you're in construction, Ken,
I get it.
if we go for what can we get for a reduction on labor up here? It's gonna be like $2,000.
Yes.
You know, it makes the job sweeter for the contract. It is a local contractor in Johnson, which I'm happy about, but
This has already been approved by both boards and we're in a legally binding contract, so we need to go forward.
The other thing I heard, late in the game was also that the upgraded condensers will be sizable enough for, proposed different building too. But it could go with.
When I met with the contractors for the site visit, that was one of the questions that I made sure they all answered, is that it was well known that this building might be torn down, and we've been talking about this for quite a while now. That those heat pumps could go to a new location. That's still the case. It's only gonna save us the cost of the equipment. And of course, the labor and the ductwork and all that would have to be, the coils would have to be replaced. Have been replaced, the new line set, but so.
I mean, not to stop, but all in all, the hope was that we could do something to save money, but the project's gone too far now that I've learned that. I don't think there's anything we can do about it besides, we could save a little money, but it's not smart
it's
by the result.
not the good savings.
It would have been great if we could have, saved half that and limped the upstairs along with some window units or something for a year or two
To be honest,
But-
if
I know you
If the-
sweat a lot at meetings, so.
if the round of funding that was discussed at our last joint meeting was a thing last year, probably the village wouldn't have had the town go with this and the town had the village go with the clock tower, we probably would have thought differently back then. Times change quite a bit and rapidly in this environment.
I think you jumped off the cliff and you said, wait.
Yep,
So,
basically what it is. I mean, we're hoping once we got more information, I think me and Eric realized it was a no-go anyway.
So I think like Mike said, this is a done deal as far as both boards agreed, projects moving forward, so there's no action needed tonight, would be my assumption.
You guys sound good? Yeah, I like AC, Ken. It's a modern marvel.
I know, you're getting soft. Okay, and then as far as the mitigation work on the outside, it's the same scenario. Do we wanna, yes, I get it's grant funded or mitigation funded and no cost to taxpayers, but it is cost to taxpayers because it's income tax. So do we wanna waste, what is it, $80-something thousand? When in 2 to 3 months, we might be able to say there's 80% chances it's going through instead of saying that we're looking at it.
The funds disappear if we don't do it.
What's that, mitigation funds from FEMA? No, I think you could simply delay the project, whether the contractor.
The extension is only good till, we have to have the work completed and reimbursements set in by December 31st of 25.
Correct, so that if we waited till July and the contractor agreed to start it in August, it would be done
Contractor's
in
gonna start
less than 30
less than 2
days.
weeks.
Yeah, we kind of did schedule it already. I hear you on that. For me,
I mean,
I'm
you
not speaking for the
You just
board.
think of how pitiful it's gonna be when the newspaper likes to write stupid articles about the village and the town.
They love you and I.
Looks at this wall as we're ripping it down after being up for less than a year or so, you know what I mean? That's all.
Yeah,
If it's up for more than a year or so, and we have a flood in a month.
We could burn down tomorrow and everybody be mad we don't have sprinklers in here.
that's true.
So you can come up with all kinds of stupid
Our
solutions
fire department.
or scenarios. Now that's stupid. I'm just saying that.
Well,
I could just see us saving some money.
To me, unfortunately, I don't love the system that we have. I do think we've lined up the work and I wanted the work done last year, but to me, it's a bird in the hand versus two in the bush conversation where I believe, and I'm not speaking for the board, that we need to protect the municipal building. If in 2 months, they come back and say, you guys got the funding, I still think we're 2 years or 3 years. So if it was in 2 months, we're gonna buy this property, have this building brought in that's Conex boxes or whatever and stacked together in some sort of futuristic sci-fi thing. I don't know.
What?
If it was quick, I guess I would be more apt to, but we deal a lot with VEM on the flooding aspects, and every time I hear about it, this building only flooded once.
That's right.
It
That's
did.
my point. So at the same time, it's not gonna be 2 years before we decide we're not gonna move here and start doing that down there. I can promise you that. Cause we're kind of holding off that project right now to focus on this up here now.
How long do you think, like, just realistically, anybody can jump in here, I'm not.
He's the one
If-
with most answers on our.
If they said today, the states, the feds, I don't know, we got Paul Warden in the audience and he's really wealthy, maybe he's gonna write a check today.
Yeah.
How long do you think it'd be? Realistic timelines to have this building torn down and all the staff moved out, new buildings, new offices, whatever it works out to be.
As far as the. Wanting to tear it down to, on the construction side of the wastewater plant. If I had a go today, we could definitely be, scraping earth next spring. So we'd have to figure out, and that the relocation part of the picture is where we'd have to. Figure out, my guess, we'd have to figure out interim digs while we decided on where permanent digs were.
And I mean, we haven't talked about interim office space or anything like that. I think just because government moves slow, unfortunately.
Right, but we've been 2 years on it already, so it's not
Yeah.
as slow as you're thinking, you know what I mean?
No, I'm not
We're 2
saying,
years into
I'm not
that.
saying you guys haven't done anything. I'm saying this round of money and the change in direction or thoughts, like this specific round. I worry about the taxpayers' asset here. And I hear Ken on not wasting federal money, but I am the guy that said I'd waste the feds' money to protect the town taxpayers day in and day out.
But you also didn't say that knowing that we want to tear this building down and move here within the next year and a half, 2 years.
That's true.
Mr. Chair, can I have a floor?
Sure.
I tell you what, why don't we get the building appraised? And you buy us out and you can do as you want with the building, we'll pay you rent for the interim.
That's an option, but at the same time. I don't wanna buy this building with mitigation work done if I'm planning on ripping it down.
Well, then
So,
you can do whatever you wanna do with the building if you want it,
Is,
we'll pay you rent, but the point is, we have a contract on this membrane and we need to follow through. And it's like you talked about, the building could burn down, yes, it could, but what happens if we do have you know, 2 weeks of rain next month and, the place gets flooded, we don't have the membrane in, or at least started. Then
I mean-
we're all gonna have egg on our face.
That's 100% true, but that didn't cost taxpayers a penny in this village, because it was insurance and FEMA to repair this building. So if you're saying you're worried about taxpayers funding, it would be the exact same thing again, whether we did mitigation or not.
I know, but still.
I,
We
Just
need
be
to protect
realistic.
our building, you know, and the money's available and it's already there. And as far as I'm concerned, we need to fix it.
And I'm completely shocked. I hear out of Mike Dunham's mouth, he's willing to waste $88,000.
We're not gonna waste money. We're not.
Well, you are if we rip it
We're
down. That's-
protecting town assets.
I'm just saying, if we rip it
You know,
down,
that's
it's a
our
waste
job.
of taxpayer money.
I don't think it's wasting taxpayer money. We're doing what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to protect this building.
Yep.
And so that's the way I feel about it.
We know this, is that the earliest applications will be accepted is June, and that's under the impression that the state has to write this proposal up. Send it to HUD down in DC and get the approval back.
That's why I was asking
And
until
so
July.
at the earliest, that's gonna be June, and that's probably, they said the second week of June, and that's if everything goes perfect.
Yep.
From that, they're gonna have an application window, which means they won't make an announcement at the earliest until September, which means all winter we could do development and design of wherever we're going. And so we have to build a building before we can tear this down. And so if 2026 is the construction season on a new building, that means this isn't gonna get torn down until probably fall of 26 or more likely summer of 27. And so,
No, because we'll be building down there if you're gonna make us wait that long.
and even if.
Our sewer plant's not gonna last for 2 more years running the way it
Everything
is.
Going as planned. The federal government just laid off, there was 850 people who were employed to manage the community development block grant.
That means there was
Across the country.
700 too many.
700 of them laid off, which means we only have 150 people left to manage that same pot of money to be distributed throughout the country. And we're only getting 64 million, 58 is coming to our zip code in Washington County. And then the rest is around the state, but you know, you have Hawaii that's getting $1 billion, you have North Carolina that's getting over $1 billion. We're gonna be off the radar, and so. I think to hope under best case scenario, we're gonna be here for probably at least another year and a half, 2. I would bet on 2. That would, and that's if everything goes as best as planned. Now that, and this money is coming out of the town coffers. And it's being reimbursed back to the town coffers. So all we're doing is asking the village to say, okay, in the town. The biggest risk to the village is that the office would be closed for maybe a week or 2 while they work at the front entrance. Otherwise, it's all on the town side. The money's on the town, the liability, the reimbursement's on the town admin, everything's on the town.
You realize we're town residents.
I get
Okay.
it.
I mean. I hear your frustration. I share them,
It's not frustration. I'm trying to be
but
common sense here.
I believe the work has to be done. If we want to break it down into money, yes, I think the town's only out $50,000 right now in 2023. I don't know how much it costs to bring everybody up here when it flooded. Did you have fun during that time, Eric? Was there any stress on village employees during that time?
Absolutely.
Did you guys lose any money from delaying receiving your taxes a month? Village wise, did you have to take out a line of credit, pay interest on that?
Yeah.
I'm just asking, I'm really not trying to be a mean person here, but there were financial hits for the village specifically when this building got flooded. And I understand there is potential for this money to be wasted, and saying 2 years away, I have no interest in slowing the process down. I just look at government and go, Adrian asked how long an HMGP grant. We haven't dug anything, and that was for a 2019 flood over in Holmes Meadow. And I'm hoping this project does not go that long. I just think the village told us to handle this. You guys handled the village garage, and we have a contract lined up and we need to do it. I wish we had this conversation 2 months ago. literally before we had somebody.
So what do you need from us?
Nothing, we're
we don't need
not
anything.
here to stop them, we're here to ask them to delay it, that's all. We've already given them permission.
The ball is already rolling, you've already.
We've already given you
all this
permission to go.
and everything. You know, Ken, if you had a contract with somebody for 125,000, 150 or whatever. And at the last minute and you were all set to go, you had your equipment, your crew ready. And then 2 weeks before they said, I don't want to do it anymore. What would you do?
Nothing, nothing you can do.
Okay, but you would be pretty disgusted, wouldn't you?
You wouldn't believe how many times I've been disgusted being in business.
Yeah. The deal's the deal, I look at it.
Time, so,
Just what-
where's you going?
They said the front will be closed for 2 weeks.
Thought he could have the whole job done in 2 weeks, but
So what's the plan with the people for the 2 weeks?
No, just open to the public.
yeah, so like. Just like we were close.
Just like a coat, all right.
Yeah, we were,
And it
we
would
were
only be
close
the-
for.
There's a portion of time where they need to pour sidewalks.
Yeah.
And do the digging just over there. So they're gonna do that at the very end and then do everything else around it. So that way just people come in.
Okay, that was, I thought the place was gonna be like shut down.
Oh,
No, not okay.
I just had
Eric
one
had something.
thing as far as sequencing is concerned, had nothing to do with membrane, no membrane, but as far as if we do end up moving the wastewater plant up here. As much as I hate this idea because, well, my office is in this building and moving sucks, but. I don't see a path that would work. Where getting this construction going could wait. On a full rebuild relocation of the municipal offices. You know,
It wasn't originally intended for that, you know that, we were looking for
We can't
a delay of,
say, let's build
3
this,
months.
and then we'll straighten
That's
this
what we're
down.
looking
We're not gonna do that.
Yeah.
You know?
so as I said, we agreed with,
Maybe we get some space up at the college temporarily.
That's good to know. I didn't recall an interim conversation, like an interim office. I'm not opposed to the idea. The government moves slow.
so like I said, we were just here to ask to see if you were willing to delay, so you're not willing to delay, so that we're not stopping the project.
That's why I give my 2 cents, everybody else did, or most of you guys did. I'm not convinced personally that this location is the best location for the sewer plant. I'm not far away from it, but I haven't made, that's my favorite option. I also don't like spending federal money because it's still my tax dollars, but I also like to beat Murphy. And Murphy says, if you guys don't continue the process like you guys have been doing, my house is gonna flood. That's gonna flood, so, I'm opposed to it, but I understand that is the best option, in my opinion, is to move forward with the mitigation here. Even if it means down the road, this becomes the best option and viable for the sewer plant, and we have to tear it all down, so. I'm in favor of moving forward, just like I was when we started the whole project, so I just wanted to put that 2 cents in.
All right, thank you. Are we on to our next one?
Yeah,
What is the next one?
Mike added skate rink. I don't know why.
Well, I figured it'd be a good time to talk with both boards here. As we know, and we've heard that Tuesday Night Live is not gonna be held over to Legion Field this year. And this would be a perfect time to straighten out the skating rink. One side is 8 to 10 inches lower than the other, and it'd be a good time to level that out. And fix it for the village and the town, because it is an asset for both. According to Brian, and sometimes, to use your statistics, there's many as 100 people skating and enjoying that skating rink. And I'd like to see a way that the town and the village could work together to fix this skating rink and to water it when it needs to be done. And I don't want to see any more rancor here between both boards on this, because we can work together for the common good of this community, I'm sure. And I would like to get the ball rolling as a joint effort between the village and the town for this skating rink. And to get that 2-inch little spigot that they have over there fixed, and so it can be flooded without using a hydrant.
Well, they can't,
Well,
the hydrant can't be used per our regulation.
well,
per our
actually,
Ordinance.
so I have it worked out.
Yeah, we've been talking about.
Brian came in
Well,
after we had our incident.
Hang on,
Okay.
there's nothing worked out because we have it in our budget for the village taxpayers to approve for us to pay one of our employees to fill the rink.
I was getting there.
So this conversation can't really happen until we know if we have funding to do that.
Look at options, okay.
I understand, I'm just saying as far as,
Can we talk about it?
hang on,
Absolutely.
hang on. So I don't think that we need to really get too much into the weeds of it right now, because we've allowed enough time for one individual during the working hours, so that we aren't paying overtime of our crew to flood the rink, and then you guys can maintain it off the other spigot. So that's, we had no intentions of eliminating the rink. You know, we just don't wanna waste 11,000 gallons of water every other year.
Ken, I just wanna say, what we're talking about is.
Hang on, let the boards talk, please.
What's that?
Let the boards finish talking, please. We'll go to the public in a second.
Alright.
Am I making sense though? So we've allowed money in our budget. We're waiting for our village residents to approve that money for this project. And we never had any intentions of removing the skating rink. Am I correct, board?
And hopefully if we get a new membrane and leveled ground, it would be a little bit easier on the water system. But if you have an employee there to supervise or check on it or something, that.
No,
If
but
you're-
they're gonna
if you're-
stay there to flood.
Yeah.
We're not gonna have that issue again because like I said, it's a safety hazard, it's a potable water hazard. A lot of stuff going on with them hydrants being messed with like they were, so.
Okay,
But
Oh, good,
you guys
so
have anything
moving forward.
to add?
So.
Do you have any infrastructure under there?
There's
We got wires on top and.
Is there a water line under there or something?
lines coming down from.
That can be figured out later. I just wanna make sure we're not
Right.
hitting anything if we're doing whatever's needed to.
Well, if you hit it at
Touche.
4 hit it at
Go right.
4 inches, our pipes are way too shallow.
Yes.
I'd like to think that'd be impossible.
I know.
I wouldn't do it, Brian.
Oh, cool, we can go back to what we're talking about? So we're talking about the level, we weren't really talking about the water usage, I know we've got that figured out, I appreciate that, that's great, guys, but back to the idea of leveling the field, because there's no TNL this year. And so we don't have to worry about the grass, even though we're in Vermont, we grow grass better than anywhere else in the freaking world in May, it's gonna go real quick. The field looks like this, it's not like this, you know, it's like this, right? So it's like 10 inches in the middle, so it's a pretty easy thing to level out. We're not trying to build a berm, we're not trying to build a bank. And even going a little bit of a depression, I think is gonna save a ton of water, a ton of the village's time, you know, the water's not gonna go anywhere if we have a little bit of a depression there. We don't need a curve, we just need something to pull out a laser and be within like 3 or 4 inches. And so we're not building up 14 inches of ice on one side down to 3 on the other and just split liners all the time, because they're, you know, you're $2,000 for a liner like that now. So it's pretty simple, you know, I think anybody with an excavator, I'm not a dirt guy, but I think most people could figure it out, it's not a big deal. We'll have equipment there, I don't know what the cost would be, I know the town owns some equipment, the village owns some equipment, but I think this is our opportunity to be pretty proactive in doing this. It's, you know, it's 3,200 square feet or something, it's not massive. If we can pin it, I can come down, help lay it out and laser it. And then we'll put the thing right in the exact same spot every single year. And you could flood the whole thing with a garden hose, you really won't need the hydrant at that point, really at all. You know, I think maybe 1 or 2 days just in the beginning to get it flooded, get the ground really hardened up. Because you run it like this and then it goes that way, then it goes that way, and then there's puddles in the road, the ducks are happy, the village is pissed, you know, little things. You know, and then you get poor ice and the kids are twisting their ankles, you know, we're gonna have a whole town full of vendors, but we don't want that.
The only drawback I see with the depression is if. You know, Tuesday night comes back to Legion Field.
Yeah.
And there's a midsummer mosquito tunnel there.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying like a hole, you know what I mean, I'm just
Right.
saying not a crown. So right now it's gonna crown, most fields have something, you know, there's already some puddles out there. I mean,
Okay.
it's 9 inches from not very far away, you know, we're
Right.
talking 40 feet across this room.
9-inch difference. So we're just gonna take some of that out of it, and then, you know, and so it's really, I don't think we need soil, I think we need to just.
Jason should be able to do that from Grader pretty simple.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
not
yeah.
the village's property,
They
so
need to.
Yeah,
we'll just,
I think we could.
we'll
talk-
deal with the water and the town.
We
can
could
deal with
talk
the
about
leveling.
the logistics of
Yeah.
dirt at a future select board meeting, I'll have to eat you guys.
You know, and then we could get more volunteers, and it's not just Brian being a recluse out there, you know what I mean? 9,000 acres.
Are you gonna do
It's
something,
my
Mike?
intent, but my intent's to get an ice rink, and it sounds like everything I did's working.
All right. Thank you very much.
See you guys.
Last item, which I think you guys said you wanted to stay around for, I respect whatever, was
He
the
wants a letter.
letter of support from the town and the village for CDS funds.
Yes,
You're looking for, we don't have a letter of support together, you're looking for,
yeah, we were hoping to just make, to write up a letter and that if you're in favor of it, you could approve it preemptively down. So we're trying to get CDS funding for, at our last meeting, we decided to go after a multi use water plaza.
she's talking about.
So that's the second project in this packet. Water Plaza is innovative urban space designed to manage stormwater while serving as a multifunctional community area. So it can do a couple things. It can be a place for water to be stored when flooding happens. And then when it's not flooding, it could be used, whatever you decide to turn it into as a recreation area. It could be a like kind of amphitheater area for a future Tuesday Night Live space. It could be, in the winter, it could be a ice skating rink. It could have like cement tables and chairs for it to be used as picnic area. It could be anywhere you want. So when it's flooding though, it'll capture water because it's like digged in. And then it would be hooked up to an irrigation system. So once the flooding goes away, the water could reroute to other areas we want to put it.
So just stop you right there, if I might. Floodwaters in Vermont are not only full of diesel, gas, kerosene,
Sewage.
and fecal matter. So who's gonna pay for the hazmat to clean this thing after a flood event?
I don't think we're asking for the village to take on any liability.
I'm asking as a taxpayer, if you're gonna have these structures that are supposed to be able to hold flood waters, you're gonna have to hazmat it afterwards to be able to have the public back into it. So take that into consideration when you talk about spending money for this.
I just sent an email, we literally had a 2 o'clock meeting today with Senator Lunch's office on these projects, and the idea was really to like create a gateway into Johnson, right? Like, we're losing our store, we don't, that's a dead space now, that turned into open. And this would be like, how do we make that open space like kind of cool, right? Like, otherwise it's just wide open and useless, and then you're driving, you know, and then you're just having, you know, so this is a way, like, what do we do, you know? And I think you're bringing up a really good point. We sent a letter, an email today to Vermont Emergency Management, and maybe when she gets back, I'll probably ask that question directly. Say, what are other towns doing to have these types of features, and how do they manage it? I'm sure it's obviously been done because they've been created, but I think it's important to
In
understand.
Vermont,
I don't know.
this has been in this been
I
in
don't think
Vermont, as
so.
far as you know.
I don't know of one anywhere in Vermont. I mean, there's similar type things on the waterfront in Burlington, but that's a little bit different
It's a lot different.
flood water. I mean, they only take a couple 100,000 gallons of fecal matter a day all summer long. But like, good point from a human safety standpoint. I'm still in support of the project. It's a question for a hurdle. These are like concepts to ask for money to come down. You guys got these funds for the village garage, right?
But for choosing
Was 3 years ago.
Right?
for going after congressional funding, we were told it was good to go after projects that either are like kind of like long-term projects that are happening for a really long time, or going after a project that's not like essential to our community. So this could be just like a nice to have and maybe functional at the same time.
So this falls in line with the planning commission
Yes.
building something there falls in line with what they're trying to do also.
It's like piggybacking, right? And which helps our application because those HMGP funds are gonna pay the lowering. And then this is just gonna pay for like the structures to make it not just a dead space.
Okay,
So it's like one on top and.
so they won't be fighting each other
No,
over
it's
the,
like, which is kind of cool, like you took 3 years to get the funding to do the garage. We're like timing this application now, so when the HMDP funding is done, that we'll have this in mind. And we did get confirmation today that if say we get the money and that doesn't work, we're not like in a rush to spend it. That we can actually delay the project until the flood mitigation is done, and then we could build this on top of.
Well, we had the funding in 3 months, once we applied. It was just as to when we were gonna be able to receive the funding. We were approved for the grant.
Right.
Almost
It
immediate.
still took a long time to
Yes.
actually,
Yes.
process it. Right. Initial approval versus disbursement, but it.
So
There
my
a little
question,
lag with that.
my question goes along with Will's kind of sorted with that project. If you put something there, where people are gonna park if it's down 3 feet? And there's no parking,
We can have like gravel parking lot.
so, but you're talking, this is for the Union Bank spot?
So we're looking, that's one of the places that we're.
Okay,
slowly
that's
looking,
just-
maybe.
I was just gonna say, both things, you won't be able to fit
No.
parking and that on that property.
It's a very vague grant too, like we're not like pinning it down. The idea is how do we create, like this community involvement and economic development. So the concepts are a possible farmer's market, like an outdoor farmer's market, and then an outdoor recreational venue. And I think that could be like a lot of things, and the grant's gonna be written. So like, how do we put flood mitigation and those two things together? There's different accounts that CDS funding
Yeah.
comes to, and like, there's 2 that we're targeting that there's not a lot of competition for. So if we can target flood mitigation into these 2 accounts, we're now like a super competitive grant, whereas if we just put in, hey, we wanna have an outdoor farmers market, we're not competing with the whole country. And it's less likely we'll be get on the radar, and so like this is like peering towards our opportunity, and we have a great opportunity here because of us, this, what we're doing, so in market. And
Nice, find a grant, dredge your rivers, but. So what's the board think? You guys wanna?
Well,
Property you're
and-
thinking of is the Union Bank property?
No,
Or
Yeah.
the green,
Huh?
the green union,
The Grand Union.
to date
You're
yourself.
not that old.
Well, we're hoping to do 2 applications, one for the water plaza and one for a move of the municipal building.
Yeah,
So,
That's just the hope and prayer to throw out there.
so.
yeah,
That way we could like, say we're an intern, say we get like $2 million to move this, and it costs 2.5. We're gonna ask for 1 to 3 million, as they say, the sweet spot. So if we ask for 3 and then we only need 500,000, we hit that funding stack, we might be able to get a new municipal building for free, so our match would come out of, different funding pools.
it's be clear, nothing's for free.
Right, income taxes.
So what's the board willing to have Eric draft up a letter of recommendation or?
For it? Yeah, I'm in favor. of it.
Obviously, if we get the funds, we could, come together for a little bit more of a planning thing.
I mean, it sounds like it's
The goal is not to tie us into a project, but tie us
Yes.
to a concept of
It's a
like.
wide scope of a project. that-
Exactly.
Just seeing if there's
Community-
funds
community
available.
Development and economic development while maintaining flood mitigation.
Darrell?
I say we do it.
Steve?
But this, obviously, you'll be managing the project or
It would be
the
a town
application
project.
process, the town project, but part of my. Okay with this is that your communication with Eric is
Yeah.
of most importance to me.
And really it's just, what we want is like, we put together that library grant, we got the preservation trust and the school, and all these people wrote letters to say, this is a good idea. We're just asking for you guys to, well, we can even draft a letter for you. Just to say, yeah, we think this is a cool idea, this will also help our village.
Right.
Just like,
Yeah, I'm just asking that during the process and just
course.
keep Eric looped in and,
Yeah.
obviously, it's all on you, it's your decisions and stuff like that. We'll support it, but just so Eric has the information and has it, be able to give that to us and keep us informed.
And this is all with no match money, correct? This is all would be 100% funded.
At this point, I think depending on where we line up at the time of receipt with our socioeconomic standing, Is like where our match is. They didn't give us a final number today, though. I said 25, I thought it was 25%. She said, oh, no, it won't be that high.
Yeah,
So there will be some match.
It would be the town's money anyways, if we had it for the match office. I know, but you say several times you're here to represent the village, and I respect that.
Also CPS.
Yeah.
So we put it, you know,
Oh, do you know what your match was for the
20,
20? Okay, I'm sure we're gonna do the exact same.
right,
if there is a match, we can look for another grant to cover the match.
Right,
so.
Exactly, yeah, exactly.
Okay,
but
so
you can also, you make sure you track your hours for the match.
Yeah,
so I don't think we need a motion because there's no money involved, so the consensus of the board is yes. Eric.
Yep.
To draft a letter
Yeah.
and Eric to sign it.
Do you want to look? Most of these-
2 letters
I don't-
for each.
I don't think we need it. Consensus, there's no money involved. So as long as he drafts the letter and signs it
I know you're in favor for
on
it.
behalf of the village, works for my board,
I'll probably look for a motion.
you'll be spending money.
No, I mean, we do non-spending motions all the time.
So move.
What was the motion?
You asked for it, you put it
I'm looking
together.
for a motion to ask Adrian and Tom to work on a letter of support from the Tom.
We're through there like.
I make the-
Owned by the town garage.
Chair, the chair will see the letter.
But they only have 2 days.
Okay, that's your motion. Is there a second? Further discussion, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, you guys have it. Anything else?
Adrian, Tom, if you have some like language you'd like to see in there, from some draft language, I would welcome it.
I think we'll make it very easy.
You good?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
We'll take the lead on everything.
Select board adjourned at 7:15.
We are adjourned.
Thank you all very much. Way too many Chevys in the park.
You're a pain in the ass.
By the town.
It's true.
Or
I haven't really.